Ahead to Iguodala. Iguodala puts it up. No, a whistle and a foul. A foul is called. You can catch and shoot, even catch and turn with 7/10 of a second. But right now the key for Golden State, 2 huge free throws. One down. That is 2 clutch free throws right there from a veteran.
Now rapping basketball, number 1, first flow.
Basketball is my favorite sport. I like the way they dribble up and down the court. It's like I'm the king on the microphone. So is Dr. J and Moses Malone. I like slam dunks and taking it to the hoop. My favorite play is the alley-oop. I like the pick and roll. I like the give and go. Cause it's basketball of Mr. Curtis Blow.
The free throw is split up into 5 different phases. The first phase is preliminary. The shooter begins with their eyes focused on the target and their feet shoulder-width apart with knees at flexion. The ball is in both hands with the shooting hand behind the ball and non-shooting hand supporting the ball on opposite side. Fingers are well spread apart and the shooting hand's wrist is in extension.
The next phase is called backswing. During this phase, the knee is extended at about 90 degrees and the ball is not moving as knee flexion takes place. The shooting forearm is extended at about 80 degrees from the upper arm. The angle between the trunk and thigh is about 80 degrees, and the shoulder, hip, knee, and ankle of the shooting side are lined up vertically. The ball is slowly raised up about shoulder level, and trunk flexion and knee flexion remains the same.
The third phase is force production. The knee extends while the upper arm raises to 90 degrees, and the elbow flexes to about 80 degrees.
The next phase is critical instant. During this phase, the trunk and knees are fully extended and the non-shooting hand guides the ball. The wrist extends while fingers of the shooting hand roll onto the ball to produce backspin while the feet remain flat during the entire phase.
The final phase is the follow-through. The body is fully upright, the shooting hand is pronated, and the wrist is flexed forward. The elbow is in full extension and the feet are flat. During the preliminary and backswing phases, the eccentric movers are plantar flexion, knee extension, hip extension, back extension, shoulder girdle depression, and shoulder internal rotation. The concentric movers are shoulder flexion, elbow flexion, and wrist extension. During the force production and critical instant phases, the concentric movers are plantar flexion, knee extension, hip extension, back retroflexion, shoulder girdle upward rotation, shoulder flexion, elbow flexion, and wrist extension. Lastly, during the follow-through phase, the concentric movers are plantar flexion, knee extension, hip extension, and back retroflexion. The eccentric movers are shoulder girdle upward rotation, shoulder flexion, elbow extension, and wrist flexion. The bony anatomy of the shoulder includes the sternoclavicular joint and the acromioclavicular joint, the humerus, the lateral and medial epicondyles of the humerus, the greater and lesser tubercles of the humerus, the acromion process, coracoid process, the glenoid fossa, the clavicle, the manubrium, the scapula, the lateral, medial, and superior borders of the scapula, and the inferior and superior angles of the scapula.
The muscular anatomy of the shoulder includes the coracobrachialis, pectoralis major and minor, deltoids, infraspinatus, supraspinatus, subscapularis, teres minor, teres major, latissimus dorsi, trapezius, rhomboids major and minor, serratus anterior, levator scapulae, and subclavicus.
The bony anatomy of the elbow includes radial tuberosity, ulnar tuberosity, radial neck, radial head, coronoid process, trochlear notch, radial notch, trochlea, capitulum, medial and lateral epicondyles, radial fossa, coronoid fossa, lateral supracondylar ridge, and medial supracondylar ridge.
The muscular anatomy of the elbow includes the biceps brachii, brachialis, brachioradialis, triceps brachii, anconeus, pronator teres, pronator quadratus, and supinator.
The bony anatomy of the wrist and hand include the scaphoid, capitate, trapezoid, trapezium, lunate, hamate, triquetrum, pisiform, metacarpals 1 through 5, phalanges, proximal, middle, and distal phalanx.
The muscles of the hand and wrist include the flexor carpi radialis, palmaris longus, flexor carpi ulnaris, extensor carpi ulnaris, extensor carpi radialis brevis, extensor carpi radialis longus, flexor digitorum superficialis, flexor digitorum profundus, flexor pollicus longus, extensor digitorum, extensor indicis, extensor digiti minimi, extensor pollicus longus, extensor pollicus brevis, and the abductor pollicus longus.
The bony anatomy of the hips include iliac fossa, acetabular rim, pubic tubercle, sacrum, lesser trochanter, intertrochanteric line, femur, greater trochanter, femoral head, femoral neck, ilium, iliac crest, anterior superior iliac spine, anterior inferior iliac spine, acetabulum, body of pubis, pubis, inferior ramus of pubis, obturator foramen, posterior superior iliac spine, posterior inferior iliac spine, greater sciatic notch, ischial spine, ischial tuberosity, ischium, ischial ramus.
The muscles of the hip include iliopsoas, rectus femoris, sartorius, pectineus, adductor brevis, adductor longus, adductor magnus, gracilis, semitendinosus, semimembranosus, biceps femoris, gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, gluteus minimus, tensor fasciae lata, piriformis, gemellus superior and inferior, obturator, internus and externus, and quadratus femoris. The bony anatomy of the knee includes the lateral and medial epicondyles of the femur, patellar surface, lateral and medial condyles of the femur, intercondylar fossa, articular facets, base of the patella, apex of the patella, intercondylar eminence, medial and lateral condyles of the tibia, Gerdy's tubercle, proximal tibiofibular joint, apex and head of the fibula, tibial tuberosity, and the tibia fibula.
The muscular anatomy of the knee includes the vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius, vastus medialis, semitendinosus, biceps femoris, semimembranosus, and the popliteus.
The bony anatomy of the foot and ankle can be divided up into 3 sections: the forefoot, midfoot, and rear foot. The forefoot contains the proximal interphalangeal joints, the distal interphalangeal joints, phalanges, metatarsal phalangeal joints, and the metatarsals. The midfoot contains the medial cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, lateral cuneiform, cuboid, and navicular. The rear foot contains the talus, calcaneus, trochlear surface of the talus, subtalar joint, and tuberosity of the calcaneus and the calcaneal tubercle.
The muscular anatomy of the foot and ankle include the gastrocnemius, soleus, peroneus longus, peroneus brevis, peroneus tertius, extensor digitorum longus, extensor hallucis longus, tibialis anterior, tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus, flexor hallucis longus.
Elmo's gonna dance on the moon!
Work, 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 work. You send me